Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stoked, the ultimate Star Trek online podcast. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy.
Hey there, J-Man.
Hi.
So today is the launch of the new Devidian story arc of the weekly episodes, and we just got our hands on it.
You guys will be watching this a few days after it, but hopefully you've already had time to get your hands on it.
You might be watching it live because we are doing this on a Saturday, so we just got done playing that. So I thought we're going to talk about that for a big part of the episode today. We don't have a lot else going on, except for we do have a pretty cool math segment coming up.
We do. Stay tuned for that. I'm going to be covering how to put together an away team.
Aha! Yeah.
Some tips and tricks you need to know. Also, I might get in a little bit to the artificial intelligence of your buffs as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, see, the timing on this is perfect because from our last weekly series that we played, I got a brain buff. And since I got that brain buff, I've been specifically thinking I'm going to make a ground combat specific away team.
Well, stay tuned, my friend, because I will show you how.
All right, sir. Now, what did you think of our first new Dividian series episode?
Well, I have a few initial impressions. First of all, love the new Drozana station.
Yes, very slick looking.
A lot of little details went into really creating something that really comes across as being the derelict salvage station that it is.
And I looked at it and I thought, you know, boy, I see inspirations of K7 here, which makes sense for the region. And I love that. And I also looked at it and I said, it's not clean. It doesn't look like a Federation station to me. And you're like, well, no, it's not. It's a neutral station.
Right, owned by Ferengis now that have salvaged it, basically.
It was a salvage station, and I think that's a really nice little subtle story arc touch. Because I thought with the Defari, they were cool, and I actually really liked the way they turned out. But I thought, why do you have to create this new sector and involve them in a way that they've never been involved before? They accomplished the same exact thing here, but using the Ferengi, they used something from canon.
Right.
And something that makes sense that you can play Dabo there. I mean, I just think it clicked really well.
I do want to point out, though, that they talked up a lot about the revamp of Drozana, but the mission itself does not take place there at all. The mission you're given is by just when you enter Eta Eridani, you're hailed by Section 31, and then you had to head to a different system, not Drozana. I think it was Dontanu or something like that.
Yeah, I forget the name.
Donatu. So the whole mission takes place there in the Donatu sector.
And once you get there, it's a pretty cool first combat situation you come into.
Yeah.
And it's a good balance, I think, between the ground combat and the space combat, because last week when we had Daniel Stahl on the show, he sort of implied that it was going to be mostly all ground combat.
He said there will be a lot of interiors in this upcoming
And there were,
series.
and the interiors were done well.
Yeah.
I really liked it. It was big. They were big, maybe a little more larger than they probably should be to scale, but
it was supposed to be a ship. It felt like a space station.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the environmentals were very cool. The fire effects and
the lighting effects and everything.
Yes.
Now, some of the coolest lighting effects in there, though, are that when you eventually encounter the Devidians themselves, and you don't know what's going on the first couple times it happens, but it's a really cool, just like trigger, and the lights change,
flash
and
of
something
blue
happens, and then the lights turn back.
Well, the captain, did you see that? And you're like, yeah, I saw that. It was like, yeah, that's exactly what they were going for.
Right.
So that was a really nice touch, and that's also ties it in with sort of how the Devidians appear in the Next Generation. There's a flash of blue in that in the Time Zero episode.
Now, one of the strange things about Devidians is that they shouldn't usually be visible in our plane of existence.
Right.
If you watch Time Zero, you know that Data had to set up the little subspace field in order to be able to witness the Devidians in their natural state. Well,
he's using his built-in subspace discriminator, I believe, Jeremy.
Right.
I guess all androids are equipped with that.
Of course.
That he's one of the only functional androids. Only that android is equipped with that.
But all of them, though.
Yes, by that same meaning that all are, yeah.
So, but they do explain it at the end of the episode about what's going on and what's causing them to cross over, basically, to our.
And they do it actually in a fairly slick way. First of all, I don't want to jump. I want to step one further back. I think once you beamed onto that Cardassian ship, to get that episode, even though you're on ground combat and you have fought Cardassians before, so that's not something that's totally new.
Yeah.
Well, at least most of us have. The momentum, though, still seems to remain, and it's not all just combat.
The great part is that I never felt like there was too much combat. I felt like there was just enough Cardassian combat, and then I had to go do something else.
Yeah.
And then finally got into the climactic combat against the local Dividian clan or whatever I was beating up. But it was all broken up in a way, and that all came after a space battle that was basically just enough space battle to get me into the next. It was like they
Yep.
really got that balance really
Yep.
great.
And so that kept the sort of pacing down right.
Right.
I also, just a graphical touch that sort of threw us for a loop, but I liked was, and now when you have to go operate a console on this new mission, instead of the entire structure of the console flashing,
All the
just
way down to the floor.
Right, which it just didn't look right. Now just the control pad was flashing.
Mm-hmm.
A little more subtle. And for somebody that sometimes gets a little OCD about stuff flashing in his game, like it drives me crazy that the Starfleet thing pulses. That always would be I would even if I knew that was like a crate that just had junk in it.
Yeah, you would have to go interact with it to turn off a flash.
But this flashing console thing is nice. It's much more subtle. It's a small touch.
It also it's you can miss it. So it also adds a bit of an element that you're actually having to look for.
Pay attention and
the
take
controls.
A look. Yeah. Now the game that the ground combat progresses and you finally end up, which I think is the first time we've ever been on the bridge of a Cardassian ship.
Yes,
and
it's true.
It's a really cool first encounter with the Devidians.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't seen that yet, well, we'll save some of the details, but it's done really well.
And I don't want to spoil too much about the final battle either, but there is a boss at the end of this, and he almost kicked my butt.
It's a great boss.
Yeah, it's really great.
He has a staff. I'm just going to say.
Well, fine. It's all spoiled then. You just ruined everything.
Maybe we'll cut that out. Or spoiler cam it. We can spoiler cam it. Any other thoughts? You did also pick up the Nebula class vessel, but I guess maybe we'll save our thoughts for that.
I want to give it more time because right now I'm not very impressed.
What did you?
I want to give it a chance.
Really?
Yeah, I want to give it a chance. So maybe next week we'll talk a little bit about the Nebula.
So before we move on from the episode completely, what did you think of the mission reward, the subspace field generator thing?
I don't really know yet. I mean, it's a device. I guess in that case,
it looks cool when you fire it off.
Yeah, neat effect, kind of like a glowy, purpley, cloudy thing going on. And it gives you good resistances against incoming torpedoes, but not great.
Well, and one of the other things is I don't really know what the ramifications are yet, but it gives you negative 400 resistance, right, to proton weapons, which where do proton weapons factor in here?
Nobody currently uses proton weapons that I'm aware of.
And the last reference I heard of proton weapons was Rika in our chat room pointed us to this link over on Memory Alpha that took place in Voyager. And it's kind of a cool description, and Harry Kim describes it as a proton, getting attacked with a proton beam is sort of like being struck by 1,000 needles at once.
Right, and because they're kinetic, they go right through force fields and stuff like that.
So now that you have a negative 400 resistance to that, what does that mean? And does that mean maybe we're going to see that as like a Devidian weapon? Because we haven't fought a Devidian spaceship yet.
That's true. I don't think we've even seen any pictures of it.
No, I don't know. I don't recall any, but I might be having a brain fart.
Right.
Well, all right. So impressions are of the first series. The next weekly batch is. I liked it. I thought good. All good maps all around.
Yeah, great environments. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was cool also to see the Klingon ships because I have not seen Klingons in combat for a while. Mm-hmm. It was cool to see the Klingons come back. I don't know exactly how I feel about the True Wave being involved, but so far I'm rolling with it.
I kind of feel like that might have been just a throwaway as a staging ground for the Devidian series to begin.
Yeah. I hope so, but we'll see. And if they can make it work, I'm open for it working. Mm-hmm. Could just be a little.
The only complaint I think that I might have, and it's not even really a complaint, just maybe a minor gripe, is that there was a lot of text in the mission that I have no idea what effect it has on anything.
A lot of the descriptions.
Now, a lot of people might actually like that just because it gives more flavor and more life to the world, but it's kind of confusing to have to weed through what you're reading to find out what you're supposed to be doing.
They did have green highlights on some of the words. So, I know some of them stuck out, and I recalled them in other dialogues, but you're right. And especially when it came to reading the personal logs and stuff like that, I was beginning to have difficulty parsing what mattered and what didn't matter. So I think my interpretation was, okay, well, I'm supposed to just take it all in and then try to recall.
Right.
But it's still, it almost makes you anxious because you want to make sure you're not missing that detail.
Exactly. You don't want to miss anything, but at the same time, you don't want to overload yourself with too much information.
Right. It's a lot to retain.
So I would actually recommend take your time.
Yeah.
Read through maybe each dialogue even twice just to make sure you understand what's going on.
I think it was Murphy or Dr. Kaz in the chat room said that he was actually going back through and playing with an alt just to reread it again.
Yeah.
So that's always an option, but just take your time now. There's no reason to rush through it.
Yeah, it'll be here for a week before the next one.
And we'd love to know what you thought. So if you're watching this wherever you're at, or you can over to Jupiter Calling, just leave us a comment and give us your opinion on the new weekly episode. Mm-hmm. All right, J-Man. Well, with all of that said, let's get mapped.
back to math. Did you miss me? Because I missed you and all your beautiful, curious little face holes. Today, I'll be attempting to list some of the major tips for assembling a killer away team, capable of conquering even the most fearsome of odds. I want to clarify that we're talking about ground combat here only, without teammates. That's right, ladies and germs, we are flying solo. Now, before I get into the guts of who to bring and how to train them, I want to make a point that I see frequently overlooked by some of my fellow players. Your buffs are you. They are your equipment. They are your talent spec. They are your success or failure wrapped up in an AI package. Neglecting them and expecting success do not go hand in hand. The first tip I have for you may sound like simple common sense, but it is nonetheless extremely important. Always bring a medic. I'm not talking about a wimpy science officer that just happens to have 1 or 2 heals trained. I mean a doctor, Jim, not a school nurse. Now, the ideal setup for your away team doctors should include at least 2 versions of medical tricorder. These heals fire instantly and can frequently mean the difference between life and respawn. Now, just below these in order of importance should be abilities like Vascular Generator and Nanite Health Monitor. But in addition to having the right abilities, traits also make a huge difference. Ensure that your doctor has the trait Creative. This can boost the amount of healing done to themselves and all allies. You might also want to look into threat reduction traits so that your doctor does not become the center of attention. In addition to keeping the health of your away teams topped off, your shield should remain a high priority as well. A second slot on your away team should be assigned to an engineer that specializes in recharging your shields and reducing incoming damage. At least 1 shield recharge ability is an absolute must. I also recommend buffs like Quick Fix and equipment diagnostics. Many players like to load up on turrets and medical generators and the like, but it's my personal recommendation to avoid stationary buffs, as these can inhibit your freedom of movement for things like enemy flanking or hazard avoidance. By hazards, I mean grenades. While we're talking about engineers, I do want to caution you to never, ever give them the ability Cover Shield. This is due to them being honorless patach that will hide behind the shield and do nothing, not returning fire, simply cowering until their mommies come and save them. Once you have these necessities covered, the remaining makeup of your team is kind of up to you. One possible option is to invest in additional support character, such as a science buff that specializes in curing ailments and doling out buffage, using abilities like Dilovine and Malorazine. A personal favorite of mine, however, is to train up a sturdy tactical officer, one with good defensive innate traits like sturdy, peak health, or aggressive, and give them abilities that will turn them into basically a walking target dummy. Draw fire, overwatch, and motion accelerator, with a touch of lunge or leg sweep to make them close the distance with the enemy. In the end, what it all comes down to is this. Each of your away team officers needs a specialty. They can never be good at everything, so instead, make sure that they are very good at one thing. If you try to get your buffs to have a wide variety of skills, they'll never be good at any particular role. It's wiser to focus and allow each officer to excel within their niche. Now, that's not to say that this is the only way to build an away team. I've heard success stories of, let's say, a tactical captain rolling around with nothing but a team full of medics, or fabrication engineers using a squad of engineer buffs to beam down entire armadas of phaser turrets and support drones to mow down oncoming enemies. And while each of these has their own merits, they don't offer much in the way of variety, and, as they say, variety is the spice of life, and the spice must flow. Wait, wrong franchise.